Hello, everyone, and welcome to another American Scouser, the morning coffee with American Scouser, or tea, I would say. But I have the coffee thing going this morning, and very appropriately, Grumpy is back. After yesterday's game, we talked a lot about it on last night's podcast with Gally, and I was really hoping it would be a therapy session, but it really didn't end up being a therapy session. I just still am disappointed, frustrated, confused, a lot of mixed emotions about that game. Not the game itself alone, but overall, the state of play, the state of the squad, and kind of like our approach overall. So we'll talk a bit about all that this morning. Hopefully everybody's going to shake the Monday off. I think we're hopefully done with Monday games for a while because they're just not panning out, and they managed to really screw up the rest of the week. So definitely don't need that. So let's look at a couple of things I wanted to talk about this morning, and it kind of like goes with the news as well. One of the things that obviously we can look at yesterday's game and how the whole game started, and this has been a trend, I guess. And that's the first thing I want to talk about because it's one of the things that was asked to Klopp about the slow starts we have. And, it's something that can't be denied. I know what Klopp is saying. His thing is, it's easier to find like these trends, and he's not big on those concepts because one, sometimes it just happens to be a fluke trend that the more you talk about it, the more you make it happen. Almost you're like creating the trend by talking about it and putting it like psychologically in your head that it's going to be a slow start, we're going to fall behind again kind of deal. While I understand that take, it has to be, and I'm sure he knows that that has to be a concern, right? I mean, the way we start games, the way we always fall behind and end up chasing games as a trend is definitely not something that you want to see over and over and over again. I think like a brief period, yeah, okay, like one game, two game, you can say it's a fluke, but it's happening game after game. And I think maybe it is not fair to put last season tech down to that. But having said that, you can also kind of like put our poor form going back to last season, I think, as well. So it could be some kind of an overlap over there where our attitude is different when we start the games. We kind of saw it yesterday. I mean, I was talking about this on the podcast with Gally as well, where when we saw the Fulham game and we were definitely outmatched, outpaced, it looked like, I know it's a cliche, but like it definitely looked like, so even if you don't know our team, and if you never watched Liverpool, if you're there's an outsider watching that game, when we played against Fulham, you could kind of tell Fulham wanted it more. I know that's, like I say, it's a cliche and everybody's like, what is that supposed to mean? But if you watch the game, you'll know exactly what it means. You could kind of see it. And I thought the Palace game would be the one to kind of shake that off and wake up and say, hey, this is, we don't want to have the starts. We want to go full speeds. And I thought, the Palace game, that's why I was so optimistic about it, but we didn't see it then. And then yesterday, when you're playing against your rival, and I think this whole, I don't know if it's the whole midfield talk, transfer talk, depth talk that kind of makes the team not itself, because we watched this team for a long time. This specific set of players we watched for a long time, and we have never seen him play like this, especially consistently play like this, looking slightly out of it or not, almost like a lot of people were using the word disinterested, and it kind of like looks like that. I'm sure they're not disinterested. They're like, like, oh, I got dinner plans after this. But the way they approach the game, the way we play it, it does look at times disinterested, not like we're fully there. Alan is with us as always this morning. How is it going, Alan? Hopefully everybody's kind of waking up in a better mood than yesterday. I woke up more still like semi-frustrated and confused and disappointed and all those things. And okay, so let's do this first, I guess. We can go back and forth to the news and look at the headlines, which is what we normally do every morning, is kind of like react to the headlines. But some of the things, like Klopp talked about, is a lot of the headlines, really. Like aside from the game, that takes out a lot more of the headlines. So let's look at the game. We have this actually, which this is from Jack at Anfield Analytics. You can kind of see their name on the bottom left corner there. Go ahead and check him out. Definitely follow him on Twitter and stuff as well. I mean, he does great work, like really helps put a lot of the things in perspective. He sent me this morning along with like some trend stats that I'm going to share. But you look at this and you say, man, and this is what Klopp was saying after the game, that it's a game that we should have won. So when we look at this, if you didn't watch the game and you woke up this morning and said, what the hell is Timuchin talking about? Uh, you turn it on, you look at the stats. I don't show you the score on top. You could look at this and say, oh, yeah, we must have won this game if you didn't see the goals part of it and if you were blind, I guess. But, I mean, you see the possession, the shots and everything like that. Looks like a team that was more on it. But did it, I mean, for those of us who watched the game, did it really feel like that? I mean, you look at these stats and part of them got padded, especially once United took the lead. They were more content with staying back and hitting us on the counter, knowing that's where we're vulnerable. I mean, you look on the left-hand side over here in their attacks, they clearly target Trent's side. But that's mainly because if you look on the right-hand side, you can see our attacks constantly coming from there. So that's kind of like a give and take right there, right? With us pushing. I think what's really concerning here to me is, and we have seen Robertson being subbed out for Costas almost every game, I think, this season, is not much coming from the left-hand side, and the Robertson Diaz thing not connecting as well as we initially thought it would, because when Diaz came in, it was like, oh, it was so seamless, right? Because shift minded to the middle, Diaz was on the left, and looked like they had instant chemistry with Robertson. And that was something I was really looking forward to this season, knowing, okay, now they have an off season together, so it's only going to get better. And really, we have not seen an improvement at all. And you could literally say it has gone back a little bit. And Diaz is very active. And sometimes I know it looks good to us, right? His active, play. He wants to be on the ball. He chases balls down and stuff. But when you look at it, sometimes I sometimes wonder too, where if he comes back too far, sometimes like the overlaps with Robertson are not working. Like they're kind of not clicking very well in terms of like spacing. I almost feel like sometimes he covers the space that Robertson would normally run onto, or he likes to be more wide instead of going inside. I mean, everybody's going to talk about the goal he scored and stuff, but he's more of a wide winger and he likes staying wide, which kind of like takes away the space from Robertson. We've seen actually Robertson run in a lot more. And I don't know if that was initially, we all thought that was by design, but the more I look at it, I don't know if it's by design or if it's the fact that Robertson can't go wide because Diaz is there, so he ends up forcing his run in. And I think if you had to pick, you probably want Diaz in and not Robertson. You want Robertson wide, delivering the ball or stretching the field that way, opening up space for Diaz. But going back to the stats, and thanks again, Jack, for like sending this over, because it kind of like says a lot about the game. I'm actually amazed to see the pass accuracy, because I thought we were very poor when it comes to passing and accuracy overall. But like I say, this is slightly padded for the passes from Van Dijk to Fab to Van Dijk to Gomez to Van Dijk to Gomez, stuff like that we were doing as we were trying to break him down, especially after 2-0-2. But so another one that Jack actually sent from Anfield Analytics is Trent. And I hate singling out players. I really do. I mean, I'm not just saying it. I really do, only because I'm okay with singling out a player if one player is glaringly worse than others and maybe has had like a terrible game or something like that. And I don't want to say needs to be called out, but needs to be pointed out. You can't ignore the elephant in the room and just be like, everybody was great. I mean, if somebody didn't play well, somebody didn't play well. So I don't like to do it in that sense, because it's not like everybody's playing great and Trent isn't. But I think it shows, I mean, his pass accuracy, you can see over there, was 72%. That's 14th in the team. And that's, so like worse than any starter and some subs. I don't even know if he used all our subs, so that could be like the worst in the team. And I know you can say some of those are because he takes more of the riskier passes and crosses, but that number is usually a lot higher. And those progressive runs is usually, even though it's second in the team, the number is usually a lot more. So it was kind of eye-opening to see this. You can see his heat map over there. That's pretty standard for him. If anything, it kind of looks like they have forced him back a lot more than what other teams do. If you're regularly, if you're like a heat map guy, and if you kind of like regularly look at these, you can kind of tell he's usually a lot more up top than towards the back with his heat map, and that's kind of like the system we play. Did he fall asleep in the first goal? Yes. But like I say, I find it really hard to put the focus on one player because I feel like it's more like an attitude problem. I don't want to say attitude, maybe it's not the right word. Maybe like an approach problem that we see where we start slow, look disinterested, clearly making the other team look like they want it more, they're into it more. And the problem with that is, especially for this team plays on intensity is our identity, right? And if you don't have that intensity, then you have no identity and stuff goes down really, really fast. And that's what we've seen. And then you kind of see like a wake up coming from the team, but then it's usually too late or not enough. I mean, I felt like, in this first half yesterday, around like the 30 minutes mark, maybe 25, somewhere around there, we had like a 5-10 minute spell where we were keeping the ball again. We were creating stuff, some good triangles being set up, some good movements. But then, I was like, okay, it's coming. And you knew if we had played our game, we were going to tear that team apart. That is still not a good United team. And that's why I'm almost like trying to stay away from some of the headlines. But I'll show it to you guys just for shits and giggles here. But when you look at like BBC and stuff like that, I mean, all these headlines about United is back, it's the start of a new era and stuff like that. Shut the hell up. I mean, you could tell the moments we got our game going, we could tear that team apart. Were they more into it? I really, really think we were talking about this yesterday. Obviously, Ronaldo not starting, but to me, more importantly, personally, I think Maguire not starting was more of a signal to that team that things are going to change. We want change, and I think that really energized that team. People who were getting a chance to play saw that, because before whatever happened, it was always McFred and Maguire back there and stuff like that, right? Because it was frustrating to the fans, frustrating to probably the other players on the team having to deal with the same issues over and over again. And I thought that was like a good signal to them that there was new change and they played like it. They kind of like, you got that energy of like a freshness. But if you really think their problems are solved, I mean, obviously Casemiro will help. Maybe, I don't know, the Glazers, to save their butts, will spend even more money and bring a couple more players in. But they're not good. I mean, you look at all these headlines this morning, it's like, look at the standings, people. As sad as it is to see where we're at, I mean, both teams are in shambles when it comes to standings. So it's not like a whole new era. Now they're going for the title and stuff. And I see the same, while I see like a ridiculous over the top optimism, I also see a ridiculous over the top negativity towards Liverpool now suddenly. Whereas, 2 weeks ago, this wasn't a concern. Now it's been 3 weeks. Oh, wait a second. Now it's going bad. Maybe you can see the play on the field and the attitude and some of the key players that kind of carry this team, like Van Dijk and Fab and Trent and, like Robo, give that solidity in the back and help the attack kind of struggle. So you can kind of see, oh, well, this is going to be a problem moving towards the future. But I really think it's way too early to hit the panic button. But now, to offset that ridiculous over-the-top negativity, there is some ridiculous over-the-top positivity over the team. And that's not right either. Now you're kidding yourself if you don't think there are no problems and this is just like a fluke. This team does need a good result or two back-to-back, I think, to kind of get their mojo back. But, you can't, 2 days ago or 3 days ago, you can't mock United and say there's no way in top six they're going to fight for relegation. And then now today, when we're actually underneath them in the standings, kind of like flip the thing and say, oh, we can still go for the, this and that. And, so that's, I think, more frustrating to me to see fans and media flip-flopping back and forth to the extremes too. Like it's almost like very hard to find people in the middle who can kind of think objectively. You have this FSG out crowd that's been had to be in hiding in witness protection program over the last couple of seasons where we were winning stuff, and they were like apparently itching for action, so they all come out. And then everyone picking either like specific players as the scapegoat, which I think is more like a team issue than a specific player issue. There are several players. When you name performances and poor performances, you're naming several players. And aside from that, I think it's not just FSG. You have to look at Klopp as well. We all love Klopp, right? But you have to call it out when you see it that lineup yesterday made no sense. We kind of put all our eggs in the Hendo basket, I think, in terms of being able to carry that midfield, and he did not have a good day at all. So everything in that midfield collapsed. But because I was really hoping, we were talking in the morning about like having Keita there. And okay, he is injured, which is a whole other ordeal by itself because it kind of came out of nowhere. And he's injured, like, don't know what. He's not going to be in training today. We don't know when he'll be back, but it doesn't sound. If it was so serious that they were like, well, God knows when he'll be back, either. I really, really feel like there's something else going on there, like him moving on or whatever the situation is. But anyway, let's get back to the midfield. If Keita was not going to be there, I knew initially when I didn't see Fab out there due to his recent form why Fab would not be playing. But if you're not going to play Keita, or if you cannot play Keita, I should say, then I thought Fab should have been out there with Hendo. And then you can have Elliott over there, and then you can bring Milner off the bench, maybe provide some energy and provide some legs afterwards. Or, play Milner. I would have even preferred a more safe, hard work in midfield. That's, Fab, Hendo, Milner, compared to what we kind of threw out yesterday. Having said all that, and I know all these midfield injuries and stuff like that, if you're just putting that game on the midfield yesterday, you're not watching the whole game either. Because I really feel like more than the midfield, and I know as a team, like one area affects all others, but there's no way that backline is playing like they should. And you could almost argue that that's making the midfield look worse too if you're going to play that game. So it's not a single player, a single area. I think throughout we have some issues. And it's more, I don't know if it's confidence, I don't know if it's like being tired. Gally brought up a good point yesterday in the podcast about maybe the team is still like not handling the Champions League loss and the short off season as well. And I know the argument is going to be, this team has come back from a loss and stuff like that in the past and come back with a vengeance. And I think that's what we were all hoping for, right? After like last year when they went for the quad, they got 2 trophies and they missed the other 2, like one in the final, one in the last freaking few minutes. We thought they would come back with a vengeance, but the way those finals were lost were totally different. One was, with like Mo's injury and Karius's goal and stuff like that. Whereas the other one, it should have been probably like a 4-0, 4-1 win. But Courtois had like a ridiculous day to kind of stop us winning literally from the Champions League by himself, single-handedly, it looked like. So I don't know if they're not reacting to that well, as Gally was saying. I thought that was a good point. I just know that something has to change so we can see against the Bournemouth team maybe some changes in the lineup just to freshen things up and not to necessarily. And the sad thing is, there are only certain spots we can do that, right? Like we can do it maybe for the left back because we see Costas constantly coming in after the game. We can do that because, we feel like there's not a huge drop off and it's like a fresh name out there, fresh body out there, maybe a fresh mindset out there. But the sad thing is with all the injuries, there's not a lot of opportunities to be able to do that because you still don't have Nunez, you still don't have Jota to be able to freshen up the front line, and you have like depth issues in midfield to be able to, you're only picking from like 4 or 5 guys anyway. And for certain spots, you're really only picking the guy that can play there, like Fab and Hendo and stuff like that. Like you don't have a lot of defensive minded midfield options. Yeah, you have like Elliott and Carvalho and stuff, but they kind of play a total different role. So frustrating to say the least. I think the most frustrating, disappointing thing to me is watching that team and not being able to recognize the attitude. Results bad results, poor results will happen. Like sometimes that shit just does not go in the net, or it's just like one person is off and they can't finish that day. Shit happens, mistake happens. Ali can make a mistake, Trent can make a mistake, whatever. That stuff happens. But I think the most disappointing to me as I watched that game yesterday, and sadly this entire season, is you almost get glimpses, right? Like a couple of minutes, you're like, there they are. Like that's the team that we've been watching the last 4 or 5 years. And that's what's like disappointing to me, that we're only seeing glimpses of the reality of this team in terms of like the intensity, the fluidity, the movements, the running, the efforts and stuff like that. And the rest of the time you're looking at it like, who the hell are these guys? Like, what happened to these guys? I kept thinking the first 10-15 minutes is like, what is this? Like, this is not the team that we're regularly used to seeing. And I think that's like the most disappointing part to me. But let's hope. I'm going to make a strong effort not to talk more about the United game rest of the week, if nothing else, for my own sanity. But let's go back to the headlines, and not a lot this morning. We kind of talked about this. The Premier League show for American Scouser TV will be actually airing later today. We talked about West Ham a little bit in that show, and they do have a signing. Looks like Emerson is coming. It might help bring some creativity on the left-hand side of things for them, but I don't know if that's like really the issue there. I really think, Moyes has to make some changes up top. I mean, that's standings right now looks really, really weird, and not definitely what you expected to see. You look at the table, and I don't think anybody expected West Ham to be dead last right now. Leicester City with 1 point right above them. Probably did not expect that either. Not with the quality they have, especially moving forward. And they had Fofana back, so you thought they would be a lot better defensively, and they only have 1 point. Wolves, I think we all knew they would struggle, especially to get goals, and that kind of shows. While they're still solid defensively and shape-wise, they have trouble scoring. Everton, I guess we all expected and kind of enjoyed them being that low, but then it's us. Bournemouth, you would probably expect to be there. Then it's United at 14th. Chelsea is 12th. And I know it's way too early in the season, but still 3 games into it, I don't think we saw these standings the way they would be right now. If you put some money on that, way to go. But West Ham adds Emerson to the left-hand side. That should be a good deal for them to bring some attack, but I think they do have to make more changes. Maybe, bench Antonio for a while. Bowen has not been himself, but maybe with a different partner on top, you can kind of bring him back. They have that double pit of Suchek, who came out injured, but it looked more like a really bad concussion because he was like dizzy, but you don't know how fast he can come back from that, how bad the concussion was. It looked bad. Like, you see players dazed, but when like he was motioning that he was like extremely dizzy, he couldn't walk straight. That was kind of concerning. It's like a big fear whenever I watch like soccer and like an injury like that, because it just did not look good. But with Rice, one thing that West Ham are not good at doing is chasing games, and they keep finding themselves in the situation where they chase games, and that double pivot is not ideal for that. They're better for controlling games, especially once you take the lead, control the game, keep the possession, regain possession fast, and kind of like get it to Bowen and stuff like that to create something. But it's going to be interesting to see if that can be turned around there. I mean, we talk about early candidates for being canned. I mean, if Maka was here, he would put Brendan Rodgers on top of the list, and he possibly could be on top of the list when you look at that, because I feel like after last year, Moyes has earned himself a lot of credit. Wolves, I can't put it on the coach. Right now, I think they need more pieces added. We'll see how Nunez, what he brings to that midfield over there, that, supposedly we were interested in at one point to sign for our midfield. Everton, I would love to see Fat Frank hit the termination line first and being the unemployment line, but I don't know. There's a lot of rumor. You see it on the headline there in terms of Gordon. I don't know if they can afford to lose Gordon. I know they're hurting for the money, but that would be a huge loss. I'm not a huge fan of him as playing style. That dude dives way too much. For a young player already to be known to be a diver is just not a good reputation to have, I feel. Uh, and so it's not a kind of player that I would want to have on my team. But for that ever team, he's like a rare spark. And especially like in their home games and stuff like that, he's one of those guys that kind of can bring the crowd back into the game with his efforts or like one run that he makes and stuff like that. And if they lose that, I don't know how they would replace it, especially after they lost Richarlison, which was the only other player they had who could do that and bring the crowd in. And let's face it, if Everton is going to have a shot at this, it's going to be mainly by bringing the crowd in and, getting points from home games. I mean, this week, for example, that had to have been a 3 points game for them because they're going into a tough stretch. I know, I'm sure like Everton fans are listening and they're like, well, you guys are right there with the thing. But I still feel, you have all these players coming back for Liverpool, and I know they're eventually going to shake this thing off. I think Bournemouth fixture turns out to be a really good fixture for that. I hope we take advantage and kind of come out to make a statement. But I'm very, very cautious in kind of hoping for that and wanting that because I thought we would do the same for the Palace game, and we really did not come with that. I'll show you who starts slow kind of an energy. We just didn't. And I want to see that hopefully this game coming up. And finally, we're on a freaking Saturday. So we'll be able to actually on American Scouser TV be able to do a pre-match and a post-match since it'll be a weekend game. And hopefully do some celebrating for once. Has not been a great year so far in terms of being able to celebrate things. I would love to celebrate Maka coming back and at least entertaining me. See, Maka would be ideal therapy for me this morning with his moonshine or whatever. We're still hoping to have him back soon. But guy's got bigger fish to fry right now in his own field. So we'll see when we get him back. We might have like some rotating hosts and stuff like that as well, because there's only so much of me people can handle, I think. But that will be for today. We'll be back again tomorrow. Well, I'll be back again tomorrow, perhaps with somebody next to me. Perhaps it'll just be my big head again. We shall find out tomorrow morning. Hope you guys shake off this United. Let's just do it right now. 8:30 Central. Let's put the United game behind us and try to enjoy the rest of the week. Good luck with that. I'll see you guys tomorrow.